first, I mean, I'll just get right to it. I mean, what's your reaction to today's verdict?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you never know what's going to happen until a jury comes back, and especially with conspiracy charges, I think that I've seen that go awry in the past. But today, the jury found Lori Vallow guilty of all of the charges against her, and so it was it felt like the appropriate justice had been served.
Oh, sorry. Anything during the trial that kind of stood out to you, surprised you at all?
A few things. I mean, I think that yeah, actually a lot of things. I mean, I spent years working on this project and working on this case and understanding it, but truly confronting the depths of darkness, I think that were at play here was certainly evident when you saw the autopsy photos of her children and of Tammy Daybell. I mean, it was just a lot darker than I think anyone really had allowed themselves to realize. But then there was also just the masses of communication between Chad Daybell, Lori, and her brother, Alex Cox, conspiring to kill these people, making a plan, and really referring to them not just as like zombies, as we had heard in the past, but obstacles, that they saw them as physical obstacles in the way of the life that they wanted to live. I think that that's just never a thing that anyone can get used to hearing. So seeing, 5, almost 6 weeks of evidence about that is certainly jarring.
And why do you think this case got such national attention? Is it the fact that there's 2 children missing and their mom is in Hawaii and doesn't seem to care?
I think it's a lot of reasons. I mean, the trial has gone on for 6 weeks, and there has been constantly a civilian presence in the courtroom. It's really drawn people from all over the country to come and sit there in the courtroom. I think the reasons are a variety, but the most common thing that I've heard is that how can a mother do this to their children? How could she offer no explanation? And in this trial, she did not mount any defense. She called no witnesses. So I think that is part of it. I think there's also, a bit of an allure around this woman that kind of embodies the all-American mom. She was a cheerleader and a beauty queen and somebody that taught Sunday school in church. So I think that all of those things combined kind of present this image of this perfect person that is just truly the exact opposite.
And of course, we have a Chad's trial. I believe it's scheduled for next April. Do you think his defense is going to blame Lori for all this?
I mean, it's a good question, but at the end of the day, as I like to say, he's the one that had bodies buried in his backyard. So I think I've heard a lot of people saying it was all Lori Vallow, but when you look at it, Chad Daybell in so many ways was the architect of so many of these ideas and conspiracies. And we also have Lori facing charges in Arizona for the death of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow. And they have just said that they will extradite Lori back to Arizona to face those charges as soon as Idaho is done with her.
So tell me a little bit about your book, why you decided to dedicate so much time. I know some reporters might get a little scared away with all these details, so many different strings to connect here. Tell me about the book and why you decided to write it.
Yeah, so it's the first book that I wrote. I'd been wanting to write a book for a number of years, and nothing had really stuck in the way that this case did. I think that what I realized about the Lori Vallow case is that it is in many ways kind of this perfect true crime case that has all of these different twists and turns and oddball characters. But for me, it fit into a body of work that I feel like I've been building for years around reporting on political and religious extremism, specifically in the West. So when I started to realize that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow might have had some similar ideas to extremists that I had interviewed in the past, it seemed like a logical case for me to understand. What I started to realize and ultimately did realize with the writing of the book was that Chad and Lori really advance the conversation around extremism that we're having in America. It's something that we often think about people, in camouflage or carrying AR-15s, kind of wearing this costume of extremism that we've all come to embrace. But with this case, I think it proves that religious extremism is mainstreaming, that political extremism is mainstreaming, and that these were people that were being very outwardly extreme for years to other people and were not being recognized in that way. So so for me, yeah, it was just an advancement of that conversation around what does extremism in America look like right now.
Now, if you had the opportunity to interview Lori, what would be the first thing you'd ask her?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I would ask her to explain to me when things changed for her about her faith. All we know is that Lori Vallow had been just the most loyal Mormon devotee for her entire life. And clearly she became interested in a certain point at these ideas that are at the very far fringes of the LDS faith. So I think for me, I would ask her to tell me about her spiritual life and her spiritual journey. That's something I think that's very important to her. And I think it'd be a good way to start the conversation.
What other questions do you have about this case?
I mean, there are many things that I think will never be answered. One of those is the strange death of Alex Cox, which is Lori Vallow's brother, who was seen as sort of a hitman in this case. Certainly the prosecution presented him that way. He died the day after Tammy Daybell was exhumed from her grave in Utah. That timing seems very suspect to me. In Arizona, investigators have said that he died of natural causes, but I'm just curious if there was something else at play there that induced those that maybe wasn't able to be seen. So I think I have a lot of questions around that. I have a lot of questions around the family dynamics of the Vallow family, of Lori Vallow's family growing up. So a lot of background questions that I'd like to fill in the gaps in the story.
Well, before you go, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think no, those are really good questions. I think for a fast interview, that's probably what I'd say is good. Thank you so much for asking me. I appreciate it.